What do you do if what you need is not achievable at the moment because it varies off what everyone needs around you? So in order to not be selfish and humble my own, I have to put it aside?
Oh boy, doesn't that sound good? What a great sounding excuse and justification. Man, that just sounds so rational. And I've had so many parents tell me, oh, my children tell me everything. No, they don't. Most of you don't know because you've not earned that. They've snowed you over.
Rabbi, do you think we will still be making decisions in the forever life?
What would be the point in watching every decision you make now if we're not going to be making decisions in the future? Begin with Shira.
I appreciate, after the number of years that I've been here, you have never let up on urging us to focus on the forever, to think ahead. And I look back to when I was in Christianity and I thought I was okay, you know. But just to be so heavenly minded, so, you know, have a focus for the future and life extension and the kingdom. Thank you for that. I've had a very interesting experience this Omer count. And I have to confess, I haven't really stuck week by week on the recommended subjects because Father went extremely deep with me during the first 3 weeks, and I'm still working on all those.
Sure.
So
look, I mean, it was meant to be something that would do that, okay? Not that you'd have to do 1 week of just the thing, but I mean, if you get kind of stuck in something that's really working well and needs a lot more attention, I'm glad it inspired that.
It did. Yeah. It really did. And so I'm learning, you know, I've got a new planner that I can set up like hour by hour pretty much on my day, which I was really having a hard time with that. But somehow this Omer, I got the vision. I got it. And I said, you know, I'm really going to, maybe not every single hour, but I have a lot of things blocked off each day. And I've been learning so much of the value of the discipline. And I'm so glad that you're sharing with us how the focus from these motivational speakers is becoming much more on discipline. Even if your flesh doesn't want to do it, you do it anyway. And what I'm discovering, see, I'm going to run this by you and see what you have to say.
Okay, but wait, hold on. Let me just, don't lose that thought.
Okay.
But what did they do? What did the motivational guys do? What they did was they observed and they learned that motivation is not enough. It doesn't work for everybody. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of what you can be doing in your own life, right? They realized that it does work for some people. And it works for a lot of people if you're the one constantly pumping them up. But when they're all by themselves and there's nobody to pump them up, they don't have the ability to self-motivate, right? So they, you know, now what happens? And that's where they realize, oh, it's discipline, not motivation, right? Now, you still need the motivator, driver, as to why you've chosen to have discipline in an area. In other words, you have to still really want the result, okay? But feeling good about it and wanting to do it at that moment is not going to work. But I just want to say that it's an observe, learn, adjust, right? They observed that it wasn't working for everybody. They had to understand why. Because I listened to them explain why they've made certain shifts, you know? Why is something working sometimes but it doesn't work all the time? And they came to realize it's because discipline is what's needed, not just motivation. All right, go ahead.
You know, I just never really experienced a lot of motivation at all until I got the vision of making it to the kingdom. Because as a Christian, I got it made. What do I have to, you know, I mean, I've got things I want to do and all that, and that's fun. But really to be motivated to please Yahweh, because that heavenly goal is the one that really works for me. So anyway, so I've been doing...
Wait. So let's talk about what your struggle was there. It really was a struggle to a certain degree, is that you didn't have, when you say you didn't have the real motivational thing, because you didn't have things you really wanted that you didn't have, okay? So I'm just saying that's where motivation comes in, is that I want something I don't have. So if you're kind of happy with what you have, you wouldn't see any need for motivation. Okay, because that's kind of what you just described. You were at a point where I kind of had everything I wanted. Everything was going kind of good. Until you realized the kingdom's something I don't have yet. And I want to have now as a motivator, I want to know what it's going to take to get that. And so that's where it comes into play. Okay, if you're satisfied in an area of your life, there's no motivation there except to keep just doing what you're doing. It seems to be working, that's good. But the motivator is for something you don't have. Okay?
And as a Christian, I, like many, we didn't know we didn't have the kingdom.
Right.
And that was the only thing that was worth it to me to work for. So here I am in this situation where I'm really bearing down the last 3 weeks or a month on disciplined habits and going for it. A lot of really good stuff happening. But I just got this thought that as I'm experiencing this and developing habits, I find that the habits themselves become the want to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
No, absolutely. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Emotion, this is Tony Robbins right here, okay? This is what he teaches. Emotion comes out of motion, okay? So when you go to the gym when you didn't want to go, you will feel like you want to be there after you go, okay? So you don't need the emotion to create the motion. You create the motion that generates the emotion, okay? I know I really need to get this task done. I don't really feel like doing it. But then after you're doing it, then you're like, oh, now I've got this thing, now I'm doing it. So it's the habit becomes the motion that you now recognize creates an emotion. Okay? Maybe you decide, I'm going to start my day by making my bed. All right? Just to have something that I accomplish first thing in the morning. And you're like, whatever. But after a while, you end up liking the way it feels when you did the task that you accomplished something. So the more you have a habit of doing something, the more you start to like the emotion it generates. And so then, like you said, the habit ends up generating the emotion.
And I find it's starting to go a little bit deeper because I'm not at the place where every time it's time to do this or that habit that I'm feeling, oh, this feels so good, I really want to do it. But I found at a deep level, the habit that's becoming well-rooted begins to define who I am. It defines my identity. So it's like, but that's who I am. I do this. And so I still feel good after I've done it, but sometimes, it's not always me remembering how good it felt the last time. It's like, okay, my bones are aching, whatever.
Right.
But it's like, but this is what I do.
That's right. Look, it's kind of like when when you ask a Torah observant Jew, why do you keep the Torah? They'll look at you like, I don't understand your question. It's what I do. I'm a Jew. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you're a Torah observant Israelite. So why do you keep the commandments? Because it's who I am, right? So when you create habits that are now who you are, it's what you do. And so there's no thought about, well, my bones ache a little bit or this or that. I'm still going to get up and do it because it's what I do, right? And the same thing with commandment keeping. When you identify as this is who I am, I'm a person that is submitted to and keeps the commandments, then you do them because it's who you are, not because you are doing it under any kind of duress or being made to do it. You've now identified as this is part of who I am, okay?
And the beautiful thing is that when it comes to, developing a habit that has to do with pleasing Him, I don't know, don't you find that He can kind of come in there with His presence and I feel like He's showing me better and more effective ways to actually please Him. The habit becomes more finely tuned because of the Ruach whispering to me, well, you could do this better. You could do this with a better attitude. You could do, or you could do this the night before, and then it won't be such a problem on Shabbat. Things like
Absolutely.
that. So.
Look, I would take it in a more general way than just saying the Spirit comes in and does these things. So certainly you could have that. But anything that you start doing, okay, and you're thinking about it more, You may be talking to people about something you're doing. Next thing you know, you're going to come into contact with more effective ways of doing it, okay? Whether it's through, you might catch a YouTube video, you might catch something in a book somewhere, you might catch something in a conversation with somebody. It may simply be inspired in your mind because now you've set your mind into this is what I'm doing, let's do it as effectively as possible. And then you may be inspired because some part of your system said, you know what, this part of it's not really working very well. And then all of a sudden you get an insight, well, what if we did it this way? That might work better. You've already committed to doing it. So, whatever that skill set, look, there are two things I'm studying a lot lately, right? I'm studying some health stuff I've been doing that for years now. Personal development stuff, so 3 things, as well as a little bit of stock market and trading and that kind of stuff. And you know what? I keep coming into either a person says, hey, recommend something, or recommends a video, or recommends something, or a book or whatever, that is in line with the things I'm looking to do better at. And sometimes it's just a thought. Hey, what if I did it this way? Maybe that would be better. So I'll sit there talking to one of my, health buddies and said, I had this idea, like Shamash Uncle Bob and I will talk about health a lot. Hey, did you think about this, this food or this supplement or doing things this way differently or whatever? And he'll say, oh yeah, and we can kick things around having thoughts. Or I might be talking to one of my buddies about trading and say, I had this thought that this thing that I was doing, it would work better if I did this. And then you have somebody to kick that back and forth with. And so absolutely those things come only because you're moving forward. Okay, there's momentum to that. If you're not doing anything, you're not getting anything. Okay, it's almost like as you're moving, you become a magnet and attract those kinds of things into your mind or people or whatever. Because I get some incredible stuff that just pops up on my sidebar of my YouTube on one of those 3 topics on a regular enough basis, about the things that I may be thinking, there's got to be a way to do this better. I'm doing this thing, it's great, I'm committed to it, but I'm sure there's got to be something better than this part of whatever it is. And then next thing you know, there's like 16 videos that have ideas, not all of which I might like, but at least something may at least give me some ideas. Why? Because I'm moving, all right? You got to be moving forward. I was going to say something that came up on a little TikTok the other day, okay? Because Shira mentioned something, but she also mentioned the other half of it, okay? Getting a journal is not doing the thing unless you actually use it to do the thing, okay? Talking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Planning to do the thing is not doing the thing, okay? Making room in your office for doing the thing is not doing the thing, okay? Doing the thing is doing the thing. Now, that's not to say these other things can't help, but just make sure that it's an adjunct to and helping you as a tool to actually doing the thing, all right? So you can watch all the videos you want, unless you're applying them, you're not really doing the thing. You're just gathering information, okay? So when she said something about this journal, these other things, she said it in conjunction with how it's now helped her be more effective in doing the thing, okay? Which is being more disciplined and accomplishing things in her life, whatever, all right? But just be careful that you don't convince yourself you're doing the thing when you're doing everything but doing the thing. Okay? Because there are people that talk about that, and talk about that, and talk about that, and it's just like the idea of moving your papers from one side of your desk to the other side of your desk is not necessarily productive. Okay? When the thing you need to be doing is, selling something or managing something, doing something that's the thing, whatever the thing is, okay? All right? All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm just very grateful because you're just describing the way I kind of was in some serious areas before this Omer count, so thank you.
You're welcome. Look, let's take it in the spiritual side. Some of you have gotten really good at listening to teachings, but are you doing the thing? Okay, because the teachings that I do are all functional. You should be able to listen to and then do something. There should be some aspect of what I said in every teaching that you can apply like today, okay? That within less than 24 hours, some aspect of that will be something you can do to tweak something you're already doing vertically, right? That's the whole point. But if all you're doing is listening and listening and listening, so I've had people say, oh, I've listened to all your teachings. Yeah, but I don't see it. Okay, you're the same person you were when I met you 5 years ago when you started listening to all the teachings. Where's the fruit? Well, you're not doing, you're gathering information. Or you're gathering tools, or you're gathering videos, you're gathering books, you're gathering this, you're gathering that. But are you doing the thing? Whatever that thing is. It could be your health, your wealth, your relationships, your emotions, your mental, whatever. All the 7 areas, right? Okay? Make sure that you're spending a lot of time taking those tools and applying them. Do the thing you're trying to do. Okay? Very important.
The first one we got is one that Walter sent to me in text, Walter Atkins. Wanting to please him, should it Should it ultimately be transformed to an I get to or I get to want to do his mindset, which I think would also help increase the results chasing, i.e., I get to do this, result chasing. Would this be a better mindset?
No. I don't want us getting into that sort of mainstream of Messianic or whatever who wants to say, well, we don't have to keep commands, I get to do it. Okay? You don't have to keep commands. If you want the result, you have to keep the commands. So you need to remind yourself, I want this result, which means I have to do what gets the result. Okay? Okay, I want to get healthier in my body, in my eating, whatever, which means that I can't then go and eat cake every night. Okay? Because that's not, I have to not do that, right? There's things that you learn, this is something I have to do, not that I get to do. If I want the result, I have to do certain things. I have to give up this or give up that, or start doing this and start doing that, okay? And so I don't like that mindset of I get to. You know why you get to? Because he made you aware of it, which means you get to make a choice, because now you know there's a choice. But if you want choice A, which is the forever, you have to do, okay? Now, you don't have to do if you don't want choice A. Choice A requires you to do, okay? So I don't, because I listen to a lot of Messianic teachers out there, Hebrew roots, whatever they want to call themselves, who say, well, we don't have to, but we get to do this stuff. Nonsense, okay? You don't have to do it if you don't want the result. But you're not going to get the result. I have people come for coaching, okay, and I don't do coaching at this point, but I've had people come for coaching where they'll say, how do I get from here to here? And I tell them how to get from here to here, and then they skip a few steps, and I'm like, then they wonder why they didn't get the result. They said, because you have to do all the steps, okay? If you're making a recipe, like you're cooking something, you can't just leave out something or put whatever other thing you want to stick in the recipe and think it's going to come out exactly the way it said it was going to come out, all right? You have to do it what it says. Well, it said put half a cup, and I put 2 cups. Or it said 2 cups, but I didn't have 2 cups, so I only put 1 cup. Well, it's not going to get you the result that was expected if you did it right, okay? And that's what you have to understand. If you don't do the steps, you're not going to get the result. There are steps to getting the result, okay? Look, you want to get in shape? It's simple. Move your body, eat better. That's 2 things. What does that mean? That's what you got to go look up. What kind of movement works best for you? What kind of eating changes your habits so that you are going to get it? But it's really 2 things. What goes in your mouth and moving your body, okay? But now the rest of it is the details. But you can't sit docilely not moving your body all the time and just eat whatever you want and expect to get some result, okay? I watch a lot of people on health, and especially in getting in shape, and I make sure I note exactly what they did, so if I do the same thing, I should expect the same result. If I do something different, I can't expect the same result, okay? Because I didn't do the formula. This is the formula for kingdom access. This is the formula for life extension. These are the steps required. You can't skip them, leave some out, or do things any which way you want. Now, he leaves you with a lot of stuff you can do whatever which way you want, but the things he says in here, they must be done. Okay? Now, you get to do them because he decided to call you, open your mind, and let you know that they were available. That's why you get to do it. So you get to make a choice. You didn't know there was a choice before. Now you know there's a choice. Now you know there's things you can do that bring you to the kingdom and things you can do that don't.
All right. From normal is different. What do you do if what you need is not achievable at the moment because it varies off what everyone needs around you? So in order to not be selfish and humble my own, I have to put it aside?
Oh boy, doesn't that sound good? What a great sounding excuse and justification. Man, that just sounds so rational. I mean, what if you do, you want to do these things, but everybody else around me needs, and I got to take care of them, and I got to put everybody else first, and so I never really can get your life organized so you can get your stuff done, and everybody else, delegate, organize, structure things so you can get your stuff done. It's all doable. Whatever your situation is, I'm sure I can find people that have the same situation that found a way to get it done. Okay? But you're, at this point, still happy to own the excuse. Okay? So in order to not be selfish, because you've convinced yourself getting your stuff done is selfish. Well, not if everybody else can take care of themselves. Maybe you're doing stuff for people that they don't need to have you do it. They need to be doing it. Okay? I had one person tell me this. This is the funniest thing. One person told me one time, well, they were working like a 4-day, 10 or so hour shift type of thing, and so they had a lot of extra days. They weren't making enough money. I said, well, what are you doing with the other 2 days? You got 6 days a week to work. You got 2 other days. Oh, well, my family, they need me. And I talked to the family. They're like, no, I wish he would just go back to work. Okay, so some of you are convincing yourself that you're much more important to everybody than you are. Okay? I'm just saying. All right? Now, maybe you have an infant. That gets to be a little tough. At some point, they're not going to be an infant, and you can start to organize your life and get some things done. Okay? And you also can get things done when they're asleep for the 5 minutes that they sleep. All right? What I'm just saying is, you're basically have convinced yourself that what you need is not achievable. I don't know. Have you looked to see if anybody else has achieved it with the same situation you have? Go look up. Single mom, 3 kids, these ages, and you'll find there's testimonies of people who've done whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Okay? Married with this kind of situation, whatever. It's achievable. Might not be easy. Okay? Because you're saying it depends on everybody else. Why does it depend on everybody else? Reorganize and structure your life so it doesn't depend on everybody else. Why is your life organized? Let me tell you something. I got a wife. I got 2 kids. Okay? And the kids started off newborns. They're adults now. Okay? And all during that time, I worked crazy hours. And never did they not have enough attention. I made sure they got the amount of time they needed. Maybe not all the time they wanted, but that they needed. How do I know? Because I would talk to them and make sure that they got the time they needed. But I also made the time to build this thing from scratch and put in the 100 hours a week that was necessary to build this. Okay? No, I'm not taking any glory away from him and everything else. I'm saying, but I had to put in the work, or this would not be where it is. Okay? It would not have magically just shown up or because God waved his hand. Somebody had to build this into what it is so that we could be sitting here today. But I did that without saying, well, I can't really do all these meetings and all these other things because I have a wife, I got little babies and everything else. I was able to figure out a way to make sure I made the time. By the way, you know how much work I did between 11 o'clock at night and 4 in the morning when everybody was asleep? A ton. Because I recognized that's the best time to get stuff done when you have a wife and kids who need your attention. So then nobody is bothering me. Once she goes to bed, the kids are asleep, I get stuff done. Some of you are like, well, I can't work those hours. Why not? How badly do you want whatever it is that you say that's not achievable? It's achievable. The question is it not achievable because it really can't be done, or is it not achievable because you are unwilling to do the things that are necessary to get it done? Now, again, I'm saying all of this to normal is different, which I love your name, by the way. because that kind of the way the world has become. Because I don't know what normal is, because all these kind of things that seem very not normal are common, which makes it normal. It's normalized by the fact that's what you can expect. But I don't know your situation. I certainly don't want to be picking on you. I'm giving a general answer out there to everybody. But when you say something that you need is not achievable, is it really not achievable? Or is it just challenging at the moment because of your situation? Is it something that will get better in a few years and you can wait and then you can make it do more? But even no matter what your situation, you can find a few hours here or there. I promise every one of you, if you let me examine what you do with your time, you waste a ton of it. There's a ton of time that you're not actually helping your spouse or dealing with your kids or doing whatever, that you are sitting there goofing off, entertaining yourself on social media or playing games, watching movies, whatever it is. You waste a bunch of time. And don't tell me that's not true, okay? Because if it's not true, then you don't have this excuse. You found a way to make that time usable, okay? There are people that don't actually waste all that time. They're the ones who are actually out there hitting it and doing it in the time available that other people don't need you for something. And they get the people around them to behave and help them. Hey, I need to do this for the next couple hours. I will give you attention after that. I know you need attention. Give me some time. This is my time. I got to get this done. Okay? You know. I told my children as they were getting older, I said, 10 o'clock, it's done. You can go to your room, you can do whatever you want. My living room, my public space is my time now. Okay? Whatever you want from me ends at that point. Now I have other things to do, YouTube stuff I want to watch, things I want to study, whatever it is I want to do, it's not you anymore. Control things. Okay? Anyway, good question. All right? But don't fall into I'm being selfish. Especially you men or single moms. If you need to take care of your family and you can't because you think you're being selfish trying to go out there and elevate yourself, which is really going to benefit them and you, I don't know that that's being selfish. Okay? I mean, ladies, you should be cheering your husbands on who are working the long hours and getting things done, as long as it is actually being productive and not spinning their wheels. And as long as they're giving you quality attention when they are home, okay? Because you want them to be out there doing that. What you don't want is them home all the time, not doing that, okay? I mean, I could do a lot of what I do from the house, and if I know my wife is going to be in the house, I'll come here so that I'm not in her space, in her way, distracting her with anything she's doing, and she's not distracting me, which easily happens if we're both home. Okay? So I will leave, even though I could pull up my laptop and whatever and work right there in the house, no problem. Do that on a regular basis. When she's out shopping this or whatever she's doing, fine, I'll use the house if I don't feel like coming all the way over here. I'm not in her way, she's not in my way. All right? Because let me tell you, you spend all day, all the time with each other, you're just going to drive each other crazy anyway. That's what we do. We need to have that time together and that time apart. Because you need to have time working on you, that you need to do that yourself, and time that you do in conjunction with other people. You need some sort of a balance between those, right? Okay? One of the toughest things on a marriage is when one or both retire and now they're both home all day. And they're both screaming in their heads going, can one of us just leave for a little while? Can you go back to work or something? All right? Because we're not used to that. When you're used to being apart most of the day and they're only coming together for a little part of the day, it's tough to then be together all the time. Unless you're actively doing, like if you work together all day long, that's different. You're actively doing the things that you guys do as a role, right? But just leisurely, socially, it's hard to do unless you've done that always. It's just hard to do.
All right, from Jim Gibbs, I liked a lot of the parallels made today between Yah's parenting/teaching style to how we should raise our children. Is a set-apart parenting class something you consider doing at some point? We just reached the 2 to 3-year-old meltdowns and want to do this right and pleasing in Yahweh's sight.
I mean, I could do this in 2 minutes of this question, okay? First of all, your number one job is to get them alive to 18. reasonably sheltered, clothed, and fed. Okay? Reasonably. That doesn't mean they get to have every latest fashion and every latest everything, whatever, but reasonably fed, clothed, sheltered, and alive. So that they can leave. Not that I'd want them to leave. I love my kids. But I knew they needed to grow. The next level takes place outside of the house. You can only grow so far in your parents' house. Okay, so they need to get out. Now, so as far as parenting, also recognize that there's only so much effect you can have with punishment, and you have to be paying attention if you try something that is trying to get their attention because they're not doing what you would like them to do or to keep them safe or whatever. Just realize, try something. If it doesn't work, try something else. Don't just keep doing the same thing that doesn't work and get frustrated and more mad at them because it didn't work, okay? Because I had one child, I could take anything away from him. It didn't matter to him. He just handed it to me. He didn't get upset about it, never argued about it. I'm sure he's fuming on the inside, but it doesn't matter. But I mean, he didn't care. So it wasn't something that really leveraged him very much, okay? So you have to find leverage. Okay, everything works with leverage. Yahweh's using leverage here. I just offered you all this amazing stuff. But I'm also telling you, if you don't do it, you get all this other stuff. Leverage. Carrot, stick. Okay? Try to find a carrot and or combination with a stick that works in terms of motivating the young ones. Now then you have the second part of the parenting starts when they get to be about 12 to 13, 14, where you start to transition from parenting them, meaning you're providing everything and controlling everything to keep them safe and whatever, where you're now guiding them into some level of independence. So you shift to becoming more the advisor, which means that you should be teaching them how to do their laundry, how to make their sandwiches and cook some things, how to take care of themselves. I can't believe that there are 17, 18-year-old teenagers who don't know how to do any of that stuff because their parents didn't have them do anything. Okay? They should be able to take care of their room, do their laundry. I learned how to do laundry at 11, okay? Told my mother, I ran out of socks. She's like, well, here, come downstairs. I'll show you how to do laundry. That's it. She never did my laundry ever again. She was tired of me telling her that, she didn't do it when it was my timing. Talk about control of your time. I could talk about that with the earlier part. She was like, no, I'll wash your laundry when I want to wash your laundry. You want to wash your laundry sooner than that? Here, let me show you how to do it. And then she got out of the business. Until my father passed, I don't think she did laundry for 45 years or 50 years because he did the laundry, And every one of her children did our own laundry. But the thing is, your children should learn how to take care of it. So that's what you want to do between, say, 10 or 12 and like 17 or 18 is teach them how to be okay taking care of themselves. Basic skill sets, okay? They should understand money a little bit. Get them a bank account. Help them understand money a little bit, right? Give them some money that's theirs that they can learn how to handle. I'm not saying give them an allowance just because they don't earn that by doing anything. And don't give them tasks that they should be doing and pay them for it. But give them a little bit of money that they can now manage and say, look, I'm going to give you some money so you can learn how to manage money. I'll give you $50 or $100 every so often, whatever it is, so that you can learn how to handle and manage your money. Because otherwise, they're going to get their first job and spend every paycheck immediately on dumb things. Because now they have money, they're going to buy every toy, every food, every goof-off thing, whatever it is, okay? Make sure you teach them how to drive. That's your parenting. But then you need to then earn the position as they get to be 16, 17, 18, where now they look at you as a trusted advisor that they're not afraid to tell things to. You can't be the one that they're afraid to talk to because of how you're going to react. That doesn't mean you just sit there and take it. I mean, I was able to tell my children, look, if I don't like something you're doing, I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you that I think this is foolish, it's going to hurt you, whatever it is, but I'm going to be doing it from an advisor's point of view, saying, I think that's a bad idea. I don't think you should be doing that. I'm not going to be like, you're doing what? And flipping out on them, okay? Because then they'll never tell me what they're doing. And I'm pretty confident that until they left the house, they both told me pretty much what they did and what they were doing. And I know because of the things they told me that they wouldn't do otherwise if they didn't have that trusted relationship, right? Okay? Not that any of them did anything so terrible, but it was just stuff that, whatever. But they told me things that would have normally made me a little awkward or embarrassing or whatever that they didn't want to talk about. But they talked about it because they could trust me. You have to earn that. Start doing that at 12, 13. Don't try to think you're going to figure that out at 18, 19. Okay? Not going to happen. You've already blown it at that point. You have to get into that relationship early. I went up to my son and my daughter early and said, look, it's important to me that we have a great relationship, so you let me know if I need to do anything to fix that, because I want to make sure that when you get to be an adult, you and I have a right relationship. Okay? Not because I'm going to coddle you and give you anything you want, but because you understand where I'm coming from, and I may not like everything you do, and I might voice that, but it's going to be voiced as advice and guidance, not as offended and hurt or this or whatever nonsense emotionally we immaturely do when we think we're adults. You're supposed to be the adult. And that was my child-rearing parenting 101. There you go. Okay? From 2 all the way to out of the house. All right? And that's really the key. You got to go from parenting to advisor. And they got to trust you, which means you have to be trustworthy, or else they're not going to tell you the stuff they're doing. And I've had so many parents tell me, oh, my children tell me everything. No, they don't. Most of you don't know because you've not earned that. They've snowed you over. Okay? Because I've gone to some parents and said, by the way, do you know that your child cuts themselves? Not my child. They would have told me, well, yeah, well, they told me. And now I'm coming to you and I'm telling you, you need to figure out, don't be mad with what they're doing. You need to figure out why they didn't tell you. That's the concern. Don't yell at them for not telling you. There's a reason they didn't tell you. Fix that. They thought I was making it up. I said, I'm not making it up. They came to me. Okay? So then you're like, well, how do you know your children weren't snowing you? Because the things they told me are the types of things they wouldn't have told me if we hadn't earned the relationship. As a matter of fact, they would come back to me and say, oh, I forgot to tell you something. Almost like confession. But just because they wanted me to know, so they felt safer. They actually felt safer knowing that I knew, so I could guide and advise them and they could make their choices, right? And so that's how you know. Don't be like, oh, my child and I are so close, so I know they tell me everything. Well, no. Think about what they tell you to know if they tell you everything. Okay? Because it's based on what they tell you that you'll know.
From Deanna Crisp, can you explain the driving out by the sword, please?
In other words, in those days you have, like what happened with Assyria coming and taking away the northern kingdom, or Babylon coming in and, the southern kingdom, that the sword will come in and literally take over or kick you out or whatever it is. So by violence, by battle.
From Blue Vet M6K, in Leviticus 26, 3-9, when does Yahweh establish his covenant with us? As it reads chronologically, he shall establish his covenant after we do his word and his blessings are poured out. Okay, so the covenant is established, in other words, initiated, and we're going to get to actually more of this next week, so I might almost ask you to wait, because in Deuteronomy we're going to see some of that play out more clearly than it did here. But it's initiated with you're agreeing to obey and trust him. That's where we initiate the covenant. Okay? Because that's really all it is that we agree to obey and trust. And we believe that he will, if we obey and trust, do all the things he promised. Now, of course, those things are promised to a nation that was going to be in a land cohesively together. That doesn't mean that we, in covenanting individually, aren't going to get some level of blessing to encourage us that we made the choice and that there really is a covenant, okay? Now, as far as establishing it, it's established every time we make the choices to obey and trust as opposed to do our own thing. So it's not a one-time, forever sort of deal. It's established every time you have an opportunity to do sideways and you go straight, all right? It's initiated like at Sinai. So it was initiated when you came to agree, I am going to trust and obey everything that he says. Now you're in covenant. It's established every time the opportunity comes up for you to break it and you don't. All right, from Mike Robillard, they got a question in Alamogordo. Rabbi, do you think we will still be making decisions in the forever life?
I don't want to pick on Mike for the question. What would be the point in watching every decision you make now if we're not going to be making decisions in the future? He wants to know now how you make decisions because you're going to be making decisions in the future. And he wants to know now how you do that. And are they done in alignment with him? I am absolutely convinced that you're going to be making tons of decisions. And that's why he put you here, to make decisions so he can watch you do that. Okay? I believe he may do something like say, here's a galaxy, have fun. Make some decisions. What do you want to do with it? I don't know. Okay? But yes, absolutely. The whole point of his testing us now with decisions is because he wants to know how we do that so he can trust us when we do it later. It really is the whole point. All right, so the point of all of this is because we're going to be doing it in the forever.
From Rachel Espino, if I have to do what gets the result, isn't that the same as doing under duress? Maybe I'm a little confused about what duress means.
If I have an opportunity to keep Torah because it will lead to eternal life, now I know I have to do it, but it's not under duress, it's because I want the result. It's kind of like if I want to get in a certain level of physical shape, which means I have to work out a certain way and do a certain amount of working out. I'm not working out under duress. It's part of the necessary things to do to get the result I want. Under duress would be Yahweh saying, by the way, you need to do all these things because I said so, and that's it. Not because there's a benefit to you, not because there's an incentive to you, not because there's a reason you should want to do it, just because I said so. Which is why you shouldn't do that with your children at all times. At some certain point as they get older, you should give them reasons to understand why doing something or not doing something is right, is important. What the consequences are of doing things a certain way. Like, for example, I told my children going on a vacation when they were young, they were probably, 7 or 8 years old, and I said, look, if you would just trust me and do everything I say on this vacation, I promise you I'll make it the best vacation you ever had. It's kind of like the whole covenant thing. It's not under duress. I told them right up front, if you would just trust me that my intention is to give you the best experience, but I need you to listen when I tell you to stop or tell you not to go somewhere, or not to touch something, not to do something. You got to trust me that my intention, though, is to give you this great experience. The Father says, you got to trust me. My intention is to give you all these blessings, but you're going to have to trust me and do all the things I say. So there's no duress there, okay? But when you tell a child, I need you to do this because I said so, they don't understand that that benefits them, benefits anybody. They're just doing it because you said so. They're doing it really out of physical fear more or whatever because you told them to do it. Instead of saying, I need you to trust me and just don't touch that. Or I need you to trust me and do this thing, okay? I know you don't get it. I'm not going to explain it to you now when you're older, whatever, but it's for your benefit and everybody, whatever. So when you say, if you do it to get a result, then it's not under duress, except the duress you put on yourself, okay? You decided, I want this. And this is going to require a certain amount of discipline, okay? All right, look, maybe you don't do this, but I do this, okay? I love to watch extremely highly proficient practitioners of different things, knowing what they did to get there, okay? We all love to watch like a Michael Jordan. Well, maybe some of you are too young to know Michael Jordan. But we all used to love the idea of watching the incredible things he could do on a basketball court. But do you understand the hours every day? He didn't just stop when he became a superstar. He kept doing it every day. He was first one there, last one to leave, practicing, shooting, whatever. He worked his butt off all the time. Why? Because he wanted the result of being the best. He wanted to win, and he wanted to be the best. So paid a price. I watch some musicians that are just like, oh my gosh, the stuff that they can do with a guitar or a bass or whatever it is that I'm watching, drums, the hours put in to get that result. Can't get that result without paying the price. So if you do something to get a result, is it under duress? No. okay? Now, I know the opposite of that. I had neighbors whose parents made them, do piano and violin. They hated it. They didn't want the result. They hated that they were made to practice hours every day. That was duress. It was going to get a result, but not the result they wanted. They were just made to do it because their parents wanted them to be. Okay? So that's the difference. Abba gives you a choice. This result or that result. Then you choose which you're going to be a slave to. The authority that leads to this result or the authority that leads to this result. Spirit, flesh, however you want to look at it, right? Choosing death doesn't mean I want to die. Choosing death says I'm just going to do whatever I want, knowing that it's just going to eventually lead to death. Choosing life says I'm going to do mostly what I want as long as it's not in conflict with what he said, because it leads to life.
All right, another one from Rachel. It's a two-parter. If Abba is watching how we handle the things in our lives, decisions we make, and the relationships we have, how do we determine if we are doing right things when things are not mentioned in Torah? In sin, breach of relationship, you mentioned that sin isn't necessarily a sin against Abba, but against the expectations of the other. What if expectations were never shared and they aren't the same?
I think if you read your question, you can probably figure the answer out. Okay, so first of all, if you are breaching an expectation that you never knew was an expectation, then that wasn't an actual covenant properly set. Which is why I tell people when they're vetting each other for marriage, I want them to have an expectations discussion where they actually show each other's, or at least share with each other what they expect from the wife role and what they expect from the husband role, so that other person can know what they're offering in that role and what they expect from the other role, okay? So if you're breaching an expectation that you were not aware of, that's a fault in the person not making you aware of it, to whatever degree. Now, once you're aware of it, you then decide whether or not you want to comply with the expectation or not. And that's where we have a lot of people who have been married for 10 plus years deciding that, you know what, I'm tired of complying with this expectation I never agreed to in the first place, didn't know it was there, and apparently it keeps getting me in trouble because the expectation is there. They have this expectation and I don't. And that can really be a challenge after a number of years of that, which is where you have to sit down and talk about it to see if there's an adjustment that can be made in the expectations. Otherwise, everybody's just frustrated. And then if you do meet the expectation under duress, because you really don't want to, then that's where we have a problem, okay? Now remember also when we trust and obey him is because we also believe in our trusting that doing things his way will bring the best result. It's the right thing to do is what we know, okay? Now, if you're having a problem, say, with your spouse, and your spouse has this expectation about whatever that's not Torah related, and to you it's like, no, that's not the way I would want it or whatever, well, it's under duress if you are being forced to do it because it's not something you actually agreed to do. We agree to trust Abba no matter what he said. You didn't do that when you got married. Matter of fact, you probably didn't even talk about it at all. You're just busy, Google-eyeing each other and just being, I just like them so much and they're just so sweet, they're this and that, whatever. And you're just all this emotional-driven flesh stuff that you're not actually thinking through, okay? And so you don't talk about expectations. Or you're not honest. I've had people say, we talked about expectations. Yeah, and did you just say things like to impress the other person or to say things that you thought they wanted to hear? Or were you honest about what you expect? Two people go out on a date and either the guy, usually it's the guy that does this, he'll order something that she likes and maybe get the same thing to try to impress her or do whatever it is to impress her. Or the other one does the same thing to impress, but that's not the way they would normally do it. Then they get married and they start doing it the way they normally would do it. The person's like, who are you? Don't do things to impress. Be you. And make sure in that relationship, Abba says right up front, this is me. I know what you need and what's best for you. If you would trust that, I'll take you as my people. That's our relationship. That's what I want. And you get all these blessings if you do. And by the way, the cursings are not necessarily caused by him. Not initially. You caused it on yourself. He says later on, I will actively do these things to you. But in the beginning, you're going to have most of these things happen because the natural consequences of your choices are going to bring these things on. Hopefully you guys caught that. It wasn't initially that he said, and I will curse you 7 times more, where he said, I will actively do it myself. Later he says, I myself will do these things to you. Which to me means some of the stuff in the beginning is just a natural consequence of your disobedience. Your bad choices bring bad consequences, okay? And so hopefully that makes some sense. So when I say that sin is breach of relationship, okay, it's got to be based on an agreed to expectation, though. It can't be a breach of relationship that I didn't know was a breach. If I breached something with you in a relationship and I didn't know that that would be a breach, it's not the same thing as that we already agreed to something and I knew something would be a breach and I did it anyway. Okay? Very different. Okay? So when it says, what if expectations were never shared? Well, then you're in a problem. If you didn't share the expectations, you probably have things that don't match up. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do it now after the fact and then figure out a way to make it work. It also means that you might come to realize that's why this doesn't work, is because we just don't have expectations that match and we're not willing to make them match. People end up divorced. It's what happens, okay? All right, and usually because one or both are doing things under duress. They're doing things because they feel forced and have to that they didn't really agree to. See, Abba's making it really clear up front. I need you to agree. If you want this relationship, you have to agree to my terms. What are my terms? You're going to do whatever I say. Okay? Now, he started off by saying, because you know who I am. I'm the one that brought you out of Egypt. I'm the one that brought you out on eagle's wings. I'm the one that did all these things. You want a relationship with me? My expectation is you're going to trust me and do what I say.
All right, from Anonymous Mom, and this is the last one from Al. Is it being selfish to consider going back to school again when I haven't completely paid off my student loans from last time?
I don't know why selfish comes in. And the only way selfish, I guess, could come into the sentence, and I still don't think it would be being selfish necessarily, is if it somehow put some sort of challenge on the family. But I mean, having student loans that you haven't paid off yet and going back to school, which probably puts your student loans back on hold, if you're back in school. Go back to school because you need to go back to school to retool something that's going to make you the money you need to make. The selfish part, I don't really understand. We'd have to talk about that in council. Or, since I have talked to you in council, I kind of have an idea of what that might be, but I'm not going to do that out here in front of everybody. So, but I don't think, for generally for everybody, I think that what you really have to deal with is, how is my choice going to affect the people that I have a relationship with? Like in this case, Al's married, he's got family. So if I go back to school, how does that affect everybody? Okay? If it's not ultimately going to be better for them, then it might be a selfish choice. Why are you doing it? It should be something that if you're choosing to do it, which means that it's going to have a negative initial impact on the family, but a further down the road positive impact, then you have to make the case for, hey, we're going to have to take a step back over here to have a better thing over here. That's often the case when you're in a situation that's not working, like financially especially, where you may have to take a step back to take steps forward. So you tighten things up a little bit, you go back to school, you retool, or you get a training program and retool, whatever you're doing, and then it should have a positive impact going forward after that, okay? So it really has to do more with that. But you might want to give me a call and we can talk about it more specifically. So that's going to do it for today.